Today we are taking a look at one of the free response question formats that are on my test as well as the AP College Board test. This is the fourth essay that you will come across, but it's also the most extensive and kind of the hardest to figure out where are you getting the points from, which is why I start our class with learning about this one first, so that way we can have the entire year to practice these skills before we head into the actual big tests. So you'll have many chances throughout the year to hopefully write out argumentative essays, get feedback, as well as kind of see where your skills at along the way, get supports, and then you'll hopefully be ready for that big AP test. So without further ado, let's get into the prompt that I gave you, and then we'll go into taking a look at the College Board provided rubric, and then a rubric that I've kind of created in case the one College Board has out there doesn't make sense. Also, bear with me in case I end up coughing throughout this. Sorry. So, taking a look, our prompt for yesterday was create an argument that explains which of the ideas contributed to the concept of a limited government: natural rights, popular sovereignty, and the social contract, and which out of those three choices best accomplishes the goals set forth in the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution. So, with that prompt in the back of our heads, we're going to go take a look at the rubric. This is in your Google Classroom, okay, so hopefully if you got to the point of watching this video, you also are seeing this rubric in front of you as well. So let's go through it. The argumentative essay is 6 total points. Now, at first when you think, oh, 6 points, that's not that much, you have to keep in mind that the essay portions of the AP Gov test is 50% of the score. And this essay holds the most weight out of any of the other ones. All of the others are worth 3 to 4 points. This one is 6 points. So this is the big kahuna. So we want to make sure we know that we are getting our points, where our points are coming from. So starting off, you have to have a claim or a thesis. Okay, that is where you're getting your first point from. So you get 1 point for articulating a defensible claim or thesis that responds to the question. Okay, so think back to the prompt that I gave you. You have to choose one of those three. Okay, so popular sovereignty, limited, what was it? It is natural rights, popular sovereignty, and social contract. You have to choose one of these three and take a stance, solid stance that one of those is best accomplishing the goals set forth in the 2 following documents. Okay, so a clear, defensible claim. And, that's the big one there, and has to establish a line of reasoning. So you can't just say a social contract best meets the goals of the Constitution and Declaration and be done. That would not get you the point. What gets you the point is saying a social contract best sets the goals for the Constitution and Declaration because, and then that's when you give your reasons. Okay, those reasonings are really important because you're going to tie back to those constantly through your essay. Okay, so again, defensible claim, is it clear of what you're arguing, and a line of reasoning. Are we able to see what you're going to talk about in your essay that's going to back up what claim you've already set out there? Okay, so this is the big one, because if you don't have a thesis and you don't earn the point for a thesis, you're not going to earn points for evidence or reasoning. The only chance of a point is responding to the alternative perspective. Okay, have to have a thesis, most important thing. Okay, so moving on to the next part. Also, going back real quick, you actually don't need a whole introduction paragraph here. Okay, I know that in some of your other AP classes, especially like AP Psych, Our essays are pretty similar in the fact of get to the point. You don't have to add a lot of fluff, right? This is more of a science-based class than English, where we are trying to put fluff and beautify up the language. We aren't doing that here. Get to your point, move on. Otherwise, potentially readers or myself could lose your main idea in all of the fluff that you've added. I don't care if you're writing 5 pages for an essay. Okay, a 5-page essay versus a 1-page essay may be worth the same amount of points. And the 5-page essay person may have wasted too much time on adding all of that fluff. Okay, so I know that this isn't what you're usually told when it comes to writing essays, but don't add the fluff in for me. Just get to your point. So all you need is that thesis. It could be 1, maybe 2 sentences at most, but you're not introducing the idea of the whole thing. You aren't transitioning into other paragraphs. Just straight up tell me the thesis. Next is your evidence. Okay, if you go back to the prompt that I gave you, you'll see that you have to support your claim with at least 2 pieces of specific and relevant evidence. Okay, 1 piece of evidence must come from the foundational documents listed above, so you have to use either Federalist Number 10, Declaration, or the Constitution. Your second piece of evidence can also come from that list, or it may be from your knowledge of the course concepts. Okay? That second part is so vague that I usually don't encourage it unless you are able to bring in something really specific, like maybe a court case that we've talked about, or a specific instance in history that has backed up your claim that you're trying to argue. Okay, but otherwise, I would really stick to the list that's provided for those documents. Okay, so you have to use at least 1 from this list here, second one from this list, or unless you have a really solid other, you can use another. Okay, so going back to this evidence, this is worth 3 possible total points. Okay, but this isn't an all or nothing here. You can get partial points for evidence. You can get 1 point for using 1 piece of evidence that is accurately linked to the topic or the question. Okay, so maybe you just used the Declaration of Independence and you never used anything else to back up your reasoning. You'd probably get a 1, okay, but it has to clearly be linked to the topic. You can get possibly 2 points here when you're using 1 piece of specific and relevant evidence to support the argument. So what's the difference between 1 and 2? 1 point, it's linked to the topic, so it's like, yeah, we know you were trying to make a connection here. 2 points is like, yep, you're very clear. It shows you have defined knowledge about this document. You're able to really well support your argument by using this document, but you're still only using 1 document here. Okay, that gets you 2 points. Or for the full points, you're using 2 pieces. They are specific and they are relevant to your argument. Okay, so your evidence here is backing up the big ideas you're talking about in your thesis. If that doesn't make sense, we'll come back to that though in a little bit. You get 1 point for your reasoning. Okay, so explaining how or why the evidence supports your claim or thesis. Essentially, you're getting a point here for closing the loop. Why do we care about the evidence that you've just told us about? Are you just throwing random facts in there, or are you connecting it back to the big idea that you've talked about in your thesis? Okay, so closing the loop here, that's your reasoning. We earn our final point for this essay by responding to an alternative perspective. Okay, so this is considered a rebuttal, where you are acknowledging and showing that you have a clear understanding of the alternative stance for this claim, and then you are showing why that alternative side is wrong. Okay, so show me that you understand clearly the other arguments that could be made, and then disprove it. Okay, so again, you're ending with your voice. You always want to end with your voice when you're ending these type of essay arguments. Okay? So this is the rubric that is put out by College Board. This is available to all of you if you go through the AP.gov site on the College Board website. Totally available. There's a lot of great resources out there for you. Now, when I first looked at this rubric, I thought, holy cow, this is really confusing to understand. I don't even know how to structure my essays. And so in talking with a couple of different teachers across the nation and talking with some scorers for AP.gov, we have created a basic rubric to kind of have a common structure for these essays. Okay, so again, this isn't something that is out there by College Board, but it's something that is supported by many of the different readers who may be potentially grading your stuff later on this year. So this is what I call my argumentative essay cheat sheet. Okay, so this is what I was talking about, where I've worked with a couple of different teachers across the nation to help organize these essays. Because remember, this course just got reorganized, redone, so these essays are really new to teachers. So not only are you still learning how to write these essays, but I'm only like a year or two ahead of you, and I'm also working with other people across the nation to help you be successful with this. Okay, we are going to ignore the part where it says write in pen, because obviously we aren't writing these anytime soon. Okay, last year's students were typing the essays and then submitting it as a file to the website. Okay, so don't worry about bringing pens into class. You are not writing anything for me in person. Okay, so just make sure you're reading the questions really carefully. What is it saying? Read it twice maybe. Okay, circle the verbs. What actions do you need to take? Okay, so define, identify, describe, explain. Maybe even take notes or start to organize an outline before you start to write. This will really help, especially if you are someone who needs a little bit more organization or need to gather your thoughts before diving into writing. If you see that questions are divided into different sections, I would recommend labeling them, or at least putting a line in between the different sections you're answering. This will help the reader and me see, okay, they are clearly answering this part of the question. They are clearly changing subject here. Otherwise, sometimes people kind of mix and go back and forth between their ideas, and it's really hard for me to see clearly, what are you arguing, what are you talking about. Okay, so when you label things and put a line in between, that really helps me see, yep, I know exactly what they're talking about, I know what they're trying to answer here, and I can get inside your head a little bit more. Make sure you're specific when you are writing your essays, so don't use any vague vocabulary. Okay, so don't use he, she, them, they. Be specific. What is the name of the person you're talking about? Okay, so if you're saying, oh, he wrote this document, who's he? Is it Madison? Is it Hamilton? Gotta be specific with those kind of things. Same with saying the government. I can't tell you how many times I've seen this. When people say the government, what level of government are you talking about? Are you talking about the president? Are you talking about our local school board members? Because technically, those are both the government, okay? But I don't know which one you're talking about, and I am not able to read your mind. So I have to always assume unless you tell me otherwise. So make sure you're very specific in the words that you are using. Take a look at these verbs to know. Okay, obviously you guys already know what these words mean, but just once I'm done and you are finished watching this video, go in and take a look and see, okay, what does it mean when someone's asking me to identify? How is that different than being asked to compare something? So just make sure to review those terms. So here is a more explained rubric for you for the argumentative essay, showing you more specifically like where are you getting these points from. Okay, so again, you are getting 1 point by having a clear thesis. So don't just restate the prompt, you need that line of reasoning. okay? And you need that line of reasoning and a clear stance in order to get the points for evidence and reasoning. So if you don't have a clear thesis, you aren't able to even get the evidence and reasoning. Even if you have really, really well-worded paragraphs where you make a great argument, you've really explained the documents, unfortunately, if you don't answer with a good thesis right off the bat, it's not even going to be looked at. Okay? That's not coming from me, that's coming from College Board. Okay? Evidence. You're using 2 pieces of specific evidence, so make sure you identify and explain your evidence. Okay, so what is the name of the document that you're talking about? What is the document even about? Okay, so again, you're showing your full understanding of these documents, and then you are using that information to relate it back to your claim, back to your reasoning, right? You're closing the loop. You're going to use your strongest piece of evidence first, and then your second strongest second. So if you are like, I know the Declaration of Independence really well, I'm able to have a really good, strong argument for that, put that first, okay? Because the reader is going to read that first and think, they really know what they're talking about. Whereas if you come out of the gate with kind of a weaker argument at first, it's not going to look as great for the reader, and you potentially might miss some points there. Okay. Reasoning, another point, this is you explaining how or why the evidence is supporting your claim. So again, remember, close the loop, okay? Don't just end by saying the Declaration of Independence was a document sent to King George. Okay, well, that's nice information, but why does that matter when in relation to talking about your thesis or the ideas that you're trying to talk about? Okay. Finally, your last point is responding to that alternative perspective. So identifying the alternative perspective, showing that you have a correct understanding. Okay, so show you are able to clearly see what would someone else argue, and then shoot them down. You always want to end with your voice. Okay, so maybe bring in some more evidence. Always end with your argument. Have the last say. You don't want to end the argument with someone else's viewpoint. You want to end it with yours. Okay, so why is your claim still the best, regardless of why someone else may have a different viewpoint? Okay, so if you are curious, take a look at this roadmap. This is a great first stop when starting to think about how do I even organize my information. You're going to want to start with your thesis, right? It doesn't have to be a whole paragraph, just straight up thesis. Then what is your argument? What is your evidence? Connect all the loops, okay? Second strongest, and then the opposing. It's really good to have however, rather, instead. Show that you're somehow transitioning into your argument after sharing the opposing view. Okay? Wow, I just threw a lot at you. I hope you guys are still with me. I just want to go over now, how does this play a role into the essay prompt that I gave you yesterday? So let's bring that back up. Okay, so again, what was the prompt? What were the documents? Create an argument that explains which of the ideas contributed to the concept of a limited government: natural rights, popular sovereignty, and the social contract. Which of those best accomplishes the goals set forth in the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution? You must use at least one piece of evidence from one of the following foundational documents: Federalist 10, Declaration of Independence, U.S. Constitution. Okay, and then below here is a real basic outline of the rubric. This is what you would see on your test. You don't get the whole full rubric outline that I just showed you. You only get these bullet point reminders. Okay, so keep that in mind. Make sure you know your rubric. So I wanted to go over some do's and don'ts, especially when looking at this specific prompt. Okay, so as far as your thesis, let's look there first. Remember, this is 1 point. Do. Okay, so this is a sample thesis here. So in terms of the ideals for a limited government, a social contract best accomplishes the goals set forth in the Declaration and U.S. Constitution because, insert reason number 1, insert reason number 2. Okay, so you see I took a clear stance that it was a social contract, and then I'm saying it's a social contract because, and then I'm telling you the big idea reasons. I'm not saying because we see it in the Declaration and we see it in the Constitution. Do not put your evidence titles in your thesis. That doesn't tell me anything. That just tells me that you're going to use those documents later on in the essay. I want to know the big idea stuff. Okay? So don't tell me it's social contract because of the Constitution and Declaration. That doesn't tell me anything about what the essay is about. Yeah, I see that you chose social contract out of the possible 3, but I have no clue what you're arguing. Okay, so make sure you have that clear line of reasoning where it's those big ideas, not your evidence. This is the number 1 mistake that I see people make, which is why it's on all caps. I don't want you to make this mistake. Your main body paragraphs, again, that's where you're getting 4 points. Okay, so how do you even structure your argument, your evidence, and then your reasoning? Okay, so kind of a sample paragraph here is, the Founding Fathers' idea of a social contract is best accomplished by, insert that big idea 1, because blah, 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 blah. This is seen by looking at the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence was a document that was sent to King George, blah, 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 blah. Okay, so show again your knowledge of the evidence. Therefore, one can see that, and then connect your big ideas into the document, closing that loop. So you're showing me the big idea, explaining it, arguing it, bringing in the Declaration, showing your knowledge about the Declaration, and then connecting the 2. Why do we care? Right? That's kind of always how you want to end your paragraphs or your essays. Read through it and think, why do I care? Why do I care about what I've said here? Does my reader care? And do they understand why they should? Okay? So here's the big thing that I see people here. People like to jump right into their evidence, and you don't want to do that. So don't start off your reasoning evidence paragraphs by going, in the Declaration, we can see that, right, blah, blah, blah. I see that you are just introducing the document right away, but I have no idea what you're arguing and using the document to support. Okay, so tell me the big idea, use the Declaration to back up that big idea, link them together. Always close the loop. Why do we care? Okay, don't start these paragraphs with the evidence titles. Don't do it. I don't know how many times I can say that. It always happens, but don't do it. Okay, and a rebuttal. Okay, do write something like this. A counter argument may say, and then you're going to say like blah, 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 blah. They may say that it was natural rights because we see this term, whatever. Show your full understanding, show another argument, and then add in that key term, however, instead. Okay, show that you are transitioning back into your argument. When you don't have those transition words, sometimes it's lost that you've gone back to your own argument. And then it gets really confusing as the reader of, wait a minute, what are we arguing here again? What side are they arguing for? Okay, so make sure that's really, really clear to your reader and your grader. Okay, so that's me. Do I realize, am I able to see you've made a clear shift back to arguing your stance? Okay? So don't leave it open-ended. Okay? So, what you guys are going to do for me, in case you haven't read the instructions, you are going back into your essay that you wrote yesterday for me. Okay, so you should still have access to those. If you don't, please let me know. I will return it to you or give you access to edit again. Please go back and make some alterations. I guarantee that no one wrote the perfect essay and scored a 6 on this from the get-go. Okay, I wouldn't have been able to do this. None of your teachers would have been able to do this. So please go back and make edits and changes. Did you write a clear thesis with that line of reasoning? How well did you explain your evidence? Did you close the loop on your evidence? Do you have those transition words to show that you are changing subject? Maybe it's even an organization thing and you just need to go in and label things or add in some spaces. Okay, reorganize the way that you have explained your information. Okay, so once you are going in and starting to make new edits, I want you to make those edits in red. Okay, so if you aren't sure how to do this, you're going to go up, okay, right at the top here where we see to make bold, italic, underline, we see text color. Please make it a nice red color so that way I can see, oh, that's what they did to edit their essay when they went back in. Otherwise, I'm going to assume you didn't listen to the video or look at the documents for today. Okay, so again, go back, make those edits. No one's perfect, trust me. It took me a while to understand this essay as well. Okay, so if you guys have any questions, please, please, please let me know. I will try to get back to you as soon as I can. It may be a little bit delayed, but I'll try to return your questions within a 24-hour period as best as I can. I will hopefully see you guys in a week or so.